So, hello, holistic heroes. I am here with Sharon Galuzzo. And yes, I did practice that name a few times because I was self conscious and I am okay with saying that. And it's far more respectful to practice than to mess it up. So, this is a human who is absolutely fabulous about turn make money, not mistakes. It is kind of like her tagline. And I love that. I am a slut for a good tagline. So, can you tell us a little bit about that, a little bit about yourself, why there are three main keys to make money, not fuck ups?
Absolutely. I call myself a profit growth strategist because I help people figure out what it is that has them stuck. So, you know how you're running your business and you feel like you are just like lost in this maze and you're making wrong turns, you're banging into walls, you're overwhelmed, you're frustrated, you don't know what to do. And you know that there's treasure buried somewhere inside this maze, but you can't find it. And to top it off, there's a minotaur chasing you. And you know what the minotaur eats? Your money. So what I do is I take you above the maze and we figure out how to get out, where to go to find all those treasures, and convince that minotaur to give you his money instead of eating yours. So that is what I do in a picture form, and I work with strategy. So I'm not one of those like, okay, let's see, I'm not a left brain person who's very like, I'm a creative strategist. So bring both those sides of my brain together when I'm helping figure out what's going on in your business. So one thing that I believe that you need is whenever you start, most businesses start because they're passionate about something, right? They're passionate about what they do. They're passionate about how they help people, what it is that they're going to do in their business. And so they start off, they just sort of figuring it out as you go, right? That's how you do things. You're running and you do this and you're building the airplane in the air on the way down, right? But when you build your business this way, there are gaps and there are weaknesses in the foundation of that business. So what I do is I come in and what I call it is the 7 pillars of profit. So I go in and say, okay, these are the 7 pillars where you should have systems, processes, things in place so that your business can operate the way you want it to actually operate instead of the, oh, I forgot to do that. And, wait a minute, I didn't pay my taxes. Those kinds of things. So we put those processes and systems in place so then your business can actually run and you can do the things that you want to do in your business.
I love that. So, part of making money, not mistakes. You talk about there are three keys. Can you go into a little bit of depth about that? Because I know that entrepreneurs and the people listening and stuff, it's so difficult because, like you said, mistakes cost money. And I
Mhm.
know, just like everyone else, like when you start your business, sometimes those mistakes have more zeros than you want them to have. that,
Yep.
that they're a little painful. I made a $7,000 mistake once, and I peed a little. I was like, and that's the worst thing ever.
So actually the first tenet that I have in my system, in which I call the position for profit system, is strategic systems. So that I did sort of talk about that,
Yes.
having those things in place. The second part that you need is consistent sales. So what happens a lot is people have, a good month and then a bad month and then a nose and then a nothing month and then another good month. And so it's really hard to gain any momentum when you're always starting over. So we have a process that we take you through to create those consistent sales. I have a structure. I actually created this tool when I started my own multiple six-figure business, which we sold for a profit. Because I didn't know what to do. And I'm not a QuickBooks person. So I just created this system that was very, very, very simple. And by utilizing this system, I was able to increase our sales every year. And after I think year 2 or 3, we were doing 30% increase per quarter year after year. So we were able to use this very simple tool to grow our business because what we were doing, Lily, was writing things down. And a
Yes.
lot of
Yes, it's in my head. Okay, that is, listeners, there are two big lies. There are two big lies that adults tell themselves. I will remember that, and I don't have to pee. Don't be that person in business. Always pee when you gotta. That's self-care, but write it down. Write it down. I have so many Google Docs with all of I call them a playbook because I was trained by a sports fanatic. And so nothing was an SOP. Everything is a playbook. And I just could never get out of that habit of calling it a playbook. But here is a myth that I want to debunk with you right now for all the listeners. I was told, so I am in the spiritual industry. I'm an entrepreneur in the spiritual industry, and I'm successful and I'm happy and I'm comfortable enough and everything. When I started my business, here's something that someone in the industry said. In this industry, it will always be feast or famine. There's no in between. You will never have steady income. You will always have to squirrel money away. And this was someone who at the time was more successful than me who told me this. And they're like, that's just this industry. And now having grown up and running a successful business, I can say, like, I don't think any industry requires feast or famine. I think if you don't follow Sharon's principles, it will be feast or famine. I think that if you do not follow your authentic self, it'll be feast or famine. But no, so it was, how do you feel about that? That's genuinely a myth in some industries that it's like, oh no, it's one or the other. And you just said, like, that's not the way it's supposed to go. That's not health. That's not a healthy business. That's a sick business.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because that is a mindset that keeps us stuck. And, the other one is it has to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be hard. We make it hard because of, mindset, because of fear, because of all kinds of things that are going on inside of us. But it doesn't have to be hard.
Yep. And as I believe, so I do manifesting. I'm a very woo-woo person. All the woo, all the woo. And it is. It's fabulous. I will not date someone until I've done their astrological chart. I will not go on a first date until I know where their moon and Venus is. I will not do business with someone until I've seen a Jupiter and North Node do something. No, I do tarot readings before I do make decisions. I've got dowsing rods. I'm that person. And I run a successful business honoring my intuition. But one of the things that, like, we butt up against in our mindsets is like scarcity and I'm not good enough. And I believe that if you do the work, the work doesn't have to be hard. Like, this doesn't have to be painful. There are growing pains. And some of, like, the worst things have been the best things for me because they made everything so much more obvious. Like, getting hit with a 2x4 sucks, but it made the decision a lot easier. And
It really does.
And it's like, yeah, after someone does copyright infringement, it's like, oh, I'm never working with you again. Isn't that an easy decision? Like,
yeah,
I made it more, instead of like, I don't know if they resonate with my soul. I don't know if our messages align. Oh, they're a twat. Okay, well, that was easy. And it's this difficulty that we put on ourselves, that when we're not aligned, it's like, no, this has to be hard. This not only has to be hard, it has to be super hard, it has to be painful. And oh my gosh, the pain Olympics. If I have not suffered and sacrificed more than someone else, then I should not be as successful as them. That is not, how do you feel about, like, those are real mindsets that entrepreneurs have. And when I look at them, okay, let me be clear. I used to have every single one of these. I am not judging anybody. I used to be a train wreck, and now I'm just a dumpster fire. I have contained it and there are no more casualties. So I'm not shaming people for having this mindset, and because I've had it too. And it's not the mindset of money. It's not the mindset of success, of prosperity, of abundance, of peace of mind, of health, of wealth, of happiness. It doesn't align with any of those things. You want to know what it aligns with? Struggle, pain, resentment, a little bit of bitterness, aging. That's what it aligns with. Ugliness inside. How do you feel about this? That like those are so, I find those mindsets so much more common in entrepreneurs than the like actual happy mindsets.
Absolutely. And people don't know that that's actually what's happening. They think it has to be hard. It's I've done a lot of work myself, and I'm doing a lot of self discovery and development and figuring things out, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know I had a fear of abandonment. I just found that out the other day. Why am I behaving this way? Oh, because you're afraid somebody's going to abandon you. But we don't talk about that necessarily in the business community, in the woo community a bit more of this is something that you learned maybe from your parents. It was something that you created as a child that kept you safe and is no longer serving you. And so that's actually part of what I do with my clients. It's not just the nuts and bolts of how to run a business like a business, but there's more to that. And actually that actually leads right into my third thing, which I call owner's edge. And one of the tools that we use in that is the joy quotient, because people start their businesses to make a difference in the world and to create and to bring beauty and to make money and whatever they start their business for. And the running of the business is the getting lost in the maze and getting overwhelmed. And every day business owners are like, I'm just going to quit. So when I work with my clients, we work with the whole person. It's not just about the business, but we conflate ourselves and our businesses so much that we can't always tease them apart. So let's just go ahead and take care of the person. Let's give you back your joy of why you started your business, give you back your why, the inspiration, and put those pieces in place so that you can have that part of it. And yeah, so very few business owners have that ability to be just what you said. I am happy, I am authentic, I am in my business, I'm not listening to all the, it has to be feast or famine. And you really have found that frequency, if you will, that where people can be prosperous in every part of their life. And so we have to educate them. So that mindset, they might not even realize that it's not their own mindset. It's something that, well, their mother always worked hard and their father always worked hard, so it must be hard to make a life.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think like having it brought up, like raised with it is one thing. I feel like it's a completely different mindset myth when it's an entrepreneur or a person of authority in business who tells you it. Like if it's something that you were raised with, it's like, oh yes, dissect that, possibly in therapy, do that. But no shame in the therapy game, no shame in the therapy game. But then when it's someone who's like successful at business and they're like, yeah, the only way to do this is to sacrifice, is to suffer. And then you have people who are suffering needlessly. And I have seen several, not to get super dark, but I have seen several entrepreneurs who have stayed in incredibly unhealthy, toxic, or even abusive relationships because they're like, well, this is part of what being an entrepreneur is that I'm supposed to have a spouse who can do the dishes, or I can't do it all by myself. And I'm like, yeah, you can. You know what you do? You find cheap food and you have it delivered. When I started my business, okay, this is not physically healthy, but it's what I needed. And I honor that. I honor this part. I ordered, at the time, it was like Domino's had like $5.99, and you could like order a pizza and breadsticks and everything was $5.99 if you picked from a certain list. Oh, I did that minimum once a month, and I ordered a bunch of stuff for $5.99, and then I would eat it for 10 days or more because I never had time to cook. I never had time to, because I was building my business, and I'm okay with that. Like, it wasn't, I was doing what I needed to do to take care of myself, even though it looked weird from the outside. I have no shame in that that's what I did, because I didn't have time to do it all, because we're supposed to be able to do it all, but we can't do it all. So you want to know what you do? You order a pizza, you pre-make food and freeze it. Now that I'm slightly more balanced and not a train wreck, I pre-make food once to twice a month, and I have a chest freezer full of labeled, like, yep, this is what I'm eating. And then I will pull it out. And you find ways that work for you to create more joy and space for happiness. It's when people think that there's no other way. It's like, oh, there is a way. It may not be what you thought it would look like. You may not like that option. Not some people are going to be like, oh my God, I could never eat that unhealthy of like takeout all the time. And I'm like, yeah, you can. Don't worry, it's delicious. But it's whatever you need to do to get through. And sometimes that's uncomfortable, but it doesn't need to be suffering. Why are people adding more? Because they're like, okay, but now I need to have, make a home cooked meal. Why? Who said? Who's judging you? No one else is in this house. Oh, but I have children. I'm like, okay, like that's legit. But again, make food freeze. Like there are more options than people are giving themselves credit for in the entrepreneur path. And they almost put themselves, the maze analogy that you used, it's almost like they put themselves in a dead end. They're like, I'm going to turn this way out of frustration. And then it's a dead end. And they're like, well, what do I do now? There's nowhere else to go. It's like, turn around, walk back. Yeah. Take a left instead of a right. There are options. You don't just like sit down. And stagnant energy, I think, is what these negative mindsets cause. Like an inability to move forward. How do you feel about that?
I absolutely agree with you. That is exactly what happens. And sometimes it's like, well, I'm just going to walk in this corner and then I'm just going to say, oh, well, I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck. Mm-hmm. But what they really need is they really might need a break, and they can't even give themselves the space to say, I need to take a break. I need to sit down. And then I'm going to get up and turn around and make another choice. Or I'm just going to stand here in this corner. And then they stand in the corner going, why isn't it working? So yeah, it's there's so much about mindset and about expectations. And there's so much noise. It's like the Grinch, the noise, 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 noise. It's very hard unless you know who you are, where you're going, what's that destination. You know who you are authentically, Lily, you can live in that place. And there are few people and business owners who can who are currently in that space.
Yeah.
And I want to help them get there. How do we bring more people into that so that they can actually be what they want to be?
Yeah. And so I am, my viewers already know I am disabled. I have chronic illnesses. And people ask, how can you run a successful business? Like, you're supposed to work 7 days a week. And I used to, with a disability, I used to work 7 days a week. And I said, it will look nothing like I thought it would. And I'm okay with that. And I schedule crash days, crash weeks. There's a crash month, and people are like, oh, so you're hurting yourself. I'm like, no. I am honoring my body's natural cycles, which are very different than a healthy standard human adult. And so I know that before this, I had a crash week where I intentionally do as little as possible. And I recharge and I lay on the couch and I pick a show to binge and I don't, but that's the thing, you don't feel bad. You have no shame. You have no shame about doing this. And
that is it.
And for me, so here's what you do, because if you don't pick it, your health will pick it for you. Add a natural break, because there's a natural break where it's like, okay, I met all my deadlines before the new deadlines start. That's when the crash happens. It's like, I'm going to schedule it here because then I'm not doing it in the middle of a deadline and missing a deadline. It's like, you can schedule your life. You can schedule your self-care. It does not have to be flying by the seat of your pants. So do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners?
This has been an amazing conversation, by the way. This is really, I love where this went. What I think is really important, and we've sort of alluded to it, is this is my favorite analogy. If I said, hey, Lily, come visit me at the beach, what would be the single most important piece of information you would need to know to do that?
Where's my sunblock? Genuinely, that's what I did not think about. A bathing suit. I did not think about where you live. My entire thought went to this porcelain.
Okay, so Lily,
porcelain.
Here's your sunblock. Come visit me at the beach. You need my address, right? I could tell you what beach I live at, but that will be arduous to try to find me. But if I give you my exact address, you can come right to my door. So that, and we talked about authenticity, and authenticity is wrapped up in this as well. Where is it you want to go? What do you want to do with your business? What life do you want to have? Let's start there. And then we can go back and build that business into the dream and the vision that you want to have.
I love that, because you're right. Besides the sunblock thing, it's like, you're right. There are some questions that I have, and you would be like Newport Beach, and I'd be like, that's a big space. Can you tell me what color the umbrella is? Can you give me a hint? Send me a carrier pigeon. And you're like, no, I could actually just tell you the exact location and send you the GPS coordinates and be fine. It can be that easy. I love that. I love that revelation for people, is that it can be that easy to get the GPS going and just go for it with your business. So if people want to follow you, ask you questions, schedule an appointment with you, how would they find you? What is your contact or website? How do you want to be stalked?
Stalk me on and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and everything is Sharon Galuzzo. There are 2 L's and 2 Z's in Galuzzo because we're greedy. But there's only 1 R in Sharon. So Sharon Galuzzo on all those platforms. And my website is sharongaluzzo.com. And if you want to just have a meeting, my scheduler is meetwithsharon.com.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for having this amazing conversation. I am not going to stop thinking about the maze for a while. So I'm just playing that in my head with the Minotaur. So thank you so much for that. That feeds my soul. Thank you everyone who is watching and listening. Remember that if you liked this, like it. If you want to follow and subscribe and see more, we would greatly appreciate that. The shenanigans never stop at Lily of the Light. And lastly, remember to be the hero of your own story and be offensively authentic.